go ahead and get the recording started. And again, just kind of fill in time while we have the last few stragglers join the call. So this will be posted to our website. I'll also send it out to the same distribution lists that you would have received the email from. So I think we will go ahead and get started. So again, wanted to start with a little bit of history. Going back even further than 2018, about 2015 or so, the legislature approached us with wanting to basically do 911 a little bit smarter and frankly a little bit cheaper within the state of Iowa. So their idea and what they approached us with was developing a consolidation plan. So we did a number of studies. We brought in a number of consultants and we held a number of workshops. And at the end of that process, what we came up with was that physical consolidation, actually, mandating the closing of doors, it was not the best way that we wanted to recommend. So what we did come up with and presented to the legislature was what we termed virtual consolidation. That virtual consolidation really took on two different forms. One is the shared services that you'll see kind of listed there on the left on my slide, and the other is the wireline migration. So when we presented that to the legislature, they thought it was a good process as well. And again, we held a number of workshops to kind of garner support and provide information throughout that process as well. So in spring of 2018, House File 2254 was signed. You're more than welcome to go look at that piece of legislation. Just one kind of caveat, those numbers reset every other year. So if you're looking at the current year's House File 2254, it won't be a 911 related thing. So you do have to go back to kind of that 2018 timeframe to be able to look at that statute. So on this webinar, I'm not really going to spend a lot of time on shared services. It's not necessarily germane to what the information I wanted to convey today. Really, I do want to focus on the wireline migration. After this webinar, if there's any questions that you might want to ask about the shared services, happy to address those. So again, it's on the screen just because that was part of the enabling legislation. It's part of the same kind of overall virtual consolidation, but it's not necessarily related to the wireline migration that I wanted to talk about today. So to spend a little bit of time and jump right into the wireline migration portion of this, House File 2254 does require us to implement our plan to merge the networks. So today, the way you receive your wireline traffic is either directly from the local telco or from the CenturyLink selective router. And on the next slide, we'll show a little bit more of that process. But what we're doing is taking that legacy landline network and merging it onto the existing next generation 911 network. And that's the way you get your wireless calls today. So that is the backbone of that network is the ICN, and it's managed by Comtech. The bottom line to all of this is there is no change to local surcharge. We're doing this with the 40% of the wireless surcharge that we get. Nothing changes. The wireline surcharge will still be remitted directly to local 911 service boards. It's not coming to us. We're not taking anything off the top. That $1 wireline surcharge will continue to go to local 911 service boards. Also, nothing changes with the wireless surcharge. It's still 60% of total revenues go to local 911 service boards. And then with the 40% that we are able to maintain, basically we are able to manage the network with that 40%. So again, nothing changes with the surcharge in either form of virtual consolidation, either the shared services or the wireline migration. There's no change to the surcharge. So I know there had been some questions about that, and I just wanted to kind of get in front of that and reiterate that nothing's changing there. So I mentioned a little bit about what the legacy wireline, how that gets to your PSAP. And there's a diagram there. It goes from the caller to the telco central office, most likely to the CenturyLink selective router. And there are, I believe, 7 of those in the state. and then to the PSAP. So what we're doing and what we'll get started on, and I'll have a timeline here in a little bit. After that conversion takes place, it actually goes a bit of a longer route to get to your PSAP, but it's an important route because it also then enters the ComTech data centers. So previously, it would not have done that. That's where kind of the next generation application part of this comes into play. So those automatic reroutes, the fact that it's IP-based, so more information ultimately can be delivered, as well as one of the benefits of this process is currently you most likely pay telco trunk fees. So you're paying for those wireline trunks to come into your PSAP. Those go away. So not only are the technological benefits to having it merged onto the next generation 911 network, we're removing costs from local 911 service boards or the PSAPs. That was one of the big benefits that the legislature latched onto, and that frankly, a couple of years ago, the PSAPs were looking forward to as well. So again, it's a little bit longer of a route, but it gets that next generation flavor added into that call once it hits the ComTech data centers. So as far as the implementation timeframe, I will be 100% upfront. We're honestly about a year behind, and I'll get into the reasoning for that on the upcoming slides. But we are ready to start having the conversations, the detailed conversations about what the implementation looks like. And this is really kind of the kickoff for that. You probably received some of the emails starting probably back in October, but this is kind of the starting to fine tune the plan and really get everyone ready for it. So the implementation is really scheduled from May until about the beginning of August. They will be daytime cuts. That way we ensure the right people are working at the right time to make sure everything goes smoothly and seamlessly. And at the end of this, I'm also going to talk about ESN duplicates. One of the things that we identified throughout this process is a number of PSAPs currently use the same ESNs. And in a legacy world, that's okay because they're on different selective routers. So as long as ESNs were different enough that they could be on different selective routers, that's okay. But once those selective routers aren't really doing the routing, those ESNs, they can't be duplicated anymore. So we're going to talk about that here in a couple slides as well. I have covered a lot of ground already. I do want to kind of take a pause and see if there's any questions so far. And we have a lot of people muted, so you might need to hit the microphone on the red microphone on your screen to unmute yourself. Also, you can feel free to type any questions into the chat window. Okay, either no one can get off mute or there's no questions, so that's good. I mentioned that in reality, we're about a year behind. Go ahead. Is there a question?
Hey, Blake, I got a question for you. So I know you're a year behind. So realistically, what time frames are we looking about to start moving forward, and how much work will there be for the local PSAPs with identifying all the telcos, and how are we going to work that with the telcos that come into your county for onesies and twosies?
So right now, the timeline is to start in May, and I'm gonna at the end of this present the first 11 PSAPs up, and while they're not necessarily set in stone, I'm presenting it here, so they're pretty locked in. If there's significant issues with the PSAPs that we've identified, certainly we want to know about it. But again, those are the ones that we're planning to start converting in May.
Okay.
And as far as yeah, no problem. And as far as your other question, Madison from ComTech will address a little bit of that process again as we move on a little bit more. But we're also having communication really daily with CenturyLink and with the telcos because they have a big part of this as well. That kind of goes without saying. So we're having those conversations as well. And we're having an informational webinar with them next week as well. So we're hoping to alleviate as much effort as we can from the PSAPs. There's another question that popped in on the chat saying, are you saying there will be state issued ESNs given so there's no repeating, or is this just inside of the agency? Yeah, I don't know that I would call them state issued ESNs. And again, Madison will kind of talk through that process as we go on in the webinar. But we will be needing PSAPs to modify some of their ESN numbers. So again, we'll get into that in just a little bit, but wanted to present it up front. Again, I mentioned that we're about a year behind, and I want to spend a little bit of time on the reasoning for that. I know I mentioned this at various regional PSAP supervisor meetings and at the 911 council meeting, but wanted to spend a little bit of time on this. And this, I'll admit, also is this was not necessarily conceived of as part of the overall project when the bill was passed. This is something that we found out really when we were a couple months from starting the transition about a year ago. As we were visiting with CenturyLink, we were informed that no longer would they provide the automatic location information. So now probably around 90% of PSAPs use CenturyLink or Intrado for their ALI. We were informed about this time last year that once they are done providing the wireline trunks, they are done providing ALI. So that made us really kind of take a step back and figure out how we were going to do that going forward. Luckily, the statewide ALI was conceived of in the contract with Comtech when that contract was done way back in 2010, 2011. We had just never activated it before. So we had to get an amendment in place to activate that portion of the contract with Comtech. And again, a number of conversations on what that migration would look like, how ALI gets transitioned at the same time as the wireline itself. So really the bottom line is that most of you are familiar with 911 Net. That will be replaced by the Comtech ALI portal. A couple benefits there. Extracts can be downloaded at will. If you want an extract every day, you can have that extract and it's free. There's no change really for how your call takers will see the ALI. So the information that comes in with the call, first of all, it'll actually come in with the call. It's not dipping an ALI database, through Intrado or CenturyLink. And the other benefit is it's funded by us. So in the past, you've probably had to pay CenturyLink or Intrado for those costs or for that service. In the future, that's under our contract with Comtech. So that it will be going away from your PSAP responsibility as well. Now, there's been a lot of questions about those that have local ALI databases. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that today because we have a specific webinar just for those PSAPs that still maintain their own ALI database. That'll be January 23rd at 1:30. That information has gone out to those PSAPs specifically that have a local ALI database. So didn't list that link there because again, it's really just for those 20 or so PSAPs that maintain their own database. And we're also scheduled to have the telco webinar January 22nd as well. So again, I want to take a pause and see if there's any questions on the future of ALI within the state. There will be extensive hands-on training that will be getting scheduled as we approach the transition time frame. So it's not like you're just going to be left with not knowing what you're doing. There'll definitely be training provided as we make that transition. Are there any questions on this?
Is this just for wireline, not wireless?
Correct. It's wireline.
As a wireless company, we already are using Comtech for our
Right.
911 phones.
and that's sorry, I'm halfway thinking out loud. Right. So it mostly impacts like the Lex, the telcos, the mom and pops that still you know wireline. So they will have to, anytime there's a new customer or customer moves, they'll be interacting with that new Comtech portal as well. So it is kind of twofold. It's if PSAPs interact with that database at all, or the wireline companies. Any other questions? All right, so I labeled this the first 10 PSAP cuts, but if you count them, there's 11 there. There is a very extensive list of things that were considered when we came up with the list and with the priority order. So again, they're not necessarily set in stone. If you have a significant issue or conflict with this, we'd certainly entertain that and want to hear about it. And I completely understand that nobody wants to be necessarily the first one to transition to this new environment. But like I said, somebody's got to go first, and there was a very detailed technical list and process that we went through when we developed kind of the first few up. So the way that this is kind of being conceived of is the first handful will be one PSAP at a time. That way we make sure everything is done correctly. That's a lot of change at once as we change both the wireline call flow as well as the ALI. So it'll start off with onesies and twosies. As the process gets refined and everything goes smoothly, we'll start knocking those out a little bit quicker. So we might do 5 at a time or 10 at a time. Again, the rest of that list, I ask for it every day. And as soon as I get something a little bit more solid, I want to show that to everyone as well. So you can kind of have an idea of where you're at in the process and start having conversations and making sure that you're prepared. And it shouldn't be that big of a burden, but again, we'll talk through some of that information about what it is you need to do to prepare. Any questions on the list?
Hey, Blake, I'm only on the phone. I don't have it. I couldn't get it to come up.
No problem. I'll read them off. How about that? So the first 10, which is actually 11, that are scheduled: Marshalltown, Iowa Falls, Hamilton County, Hardin County, Wright County, Jasper County, Mahaska County, Story County, Boone County, Poweshiek County, and Tama County. And I mentioned some of the technical reasons. A lot of that is what selective router that they're currently on from CenturyLink. As we swing that traffic, we have to make sure that alternate routes and transfers and all of that still functions. So, conceivably, just take hypothetically on the first cut, that means Marshalltown is on really one network and one call flow path, and everyone else is on a different call flow path. And we have to make sure that Marshalltown can still reach the needed PSAPs that they normally transfer to or would alt route to. So that's the reason that we picked certain PSAPs in a certain order. All right, so I want to cover some of the next steps. You've probably received a handful of times from myself and from Comtech some data intake form. We're going to go over that in depth here in a second because we still need to receive quite a few of those. And thank you for those that have gotten those in and those that have gotten them in recently. It helps move the process along. I mentioned that I'm asking every day for the full schedule, and I know Comtech is working on that. So as soon as I get that, everyone else will have that as well. I'm going to talk about the ESN duplication still in the upcoming slides, but really you'll receive kind of what those steps are here shortly. I think even maybe today or tomorrow, and start working on those. And recommend that you also at some point engage your CPE vendor and let them know kind of the cut time frame. And then finally attend the ALI training that's still yet to be scheduled. One of the questions is if one of those counties is our alternate route county, will that affect us? No, and that's what we're trying to make sure that nothing is impacted. So Comtech can correct me if I'm wrong, but that's part of what we're going through, is to make sure when especially early on, when we start making those conversions, that nothing is impacted as far as alternate routes or any of the transfers that you currently would have in place. But all of those should be fine and should be business as normal. So with that, I think Madison from Comtech, if you can try to unmute yourself, I will pull up a couple of the things. Did you want to start with the intake form first?
Sure. Blake, I did not send you one of the user information forms. I didn't know we were going to cover that one. I can send you one real quickly, or I can just kind of talk to it briefly if you'd prefer.
Yep, I had one, so it should be displayed on the screen, I hope. Can you see the form that I have pulled up?
I don't.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, we're still seeing the next steps slide.
Just a second. Thanks everyone for your patience. We're using Google Meet for the first time, so I'm trying to get used to it too.
And while Blake gets this set up, I'll go ahead and introduce myself. My name's Madison. I work over at Comtech, and I supervise the NG Data Integrity Group, or NGDIG. We're the team that's been emailing you about user information forms. We're going to be emailing you about a few more things, but we're your main point of contact for the ALI and MSAG database. We're going to be who sets you up with access, trains you on it, and make sure if you run into any issues that we can help you troubleshoot. So I can see this form. Thank you so much, Blake. This is a PSAP user information form that you all should have received. If anyone didn't receive this, please feel free to let us know and we'll send it over your way. But the expectation here is that we just need to know who we need to contact in regards to your MSAG information, and who needs to be able to access our ALI DBMS to maintain that MSAG information. So there's that PSAP information section in the top left, and that's just going to be, this is my PSAP, this is our location. The main contact is going to be who we should be contacting about any MSAG ALI information. So this might not be necessarily your PSAP director, but if you have somebody in charge of MSAG, you can go ahead and put that as your main and backup contact. And then under the ALI user accounts, we want specific people who are going to be logging into our ALI database to maintain MSAG and field any requests. Using our database, you can address any ALI discrepancies that come into your PSAP with 911 calls, and you can, it starts a workflow between PSAPs and carriers that we help facilitate. So if there are any questions about location or customer information, they can all be addressed via this workflow in the web UI. So we need individual names and emails, as well as public-facing IPs. And this is because our user interface is secure. It kept behind a firewall, and we need to make sure that your IP address is loaded behind our firewall so you can get in. If you do have any questions about that, we've got an instruction form that tells you how to find your IP addresses, but don't hesitate to shoot us an email if you're like, I've got all this other information, but I just don't know what to put here. We can happily help work you through that one. And then we've got 24/7 contact information. So if you have some sort of line that if something goes on and we need to get a hold of you in the middle of the night, if you have a best number for that, please put that there. And then authorized vendor is just a section where you can indicate if you hire a third party to maintain your MSAG data. This is specifically location information. I absolutely understand how this is confusing to some who have local ALI databases, but this in particular is addressing MSAG data only. If you have more than 5 users, we've got tons of space. You can have as many users as you want. And I know that's a lot of data, so I'm going to pause there and see if anyone has any questions. And I'm going to take silence as no questions. But like I said, if you haven't received this form or if any questions come up, please don't hesitate to give us an email. Our email is ng-data, data-services, services, @comtechtel.com. I will put that in this chat in the bottom right corner. Well, I don't know where it is on your screen. I'll put that in the chat. And then the other thing we want to go over is ESNs while we're all here. And so while Blake pulls up this form, my team, NGDig, is also going to help you maintain all of your ESNs. We're going to have an outreach going out this week that's going to kick off this part of the project. And we wanted to give you an overview of what to expect so you don't get this email and feel absolutely overwhelmed. And Blake, if you don't mind, could you actually pull up the Excel document? I think that that's going to be the best thing to go over in this meeting.
Yep, just a second.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. So this, what he is showing you is we are sending you a spreadsheet where we have all of your ESNs outlined. As he mentioned previously, we did have to reassign some ESNs because they were duplicates in transitioning to this NG model. We need to clean those up because we no longer have the delineation of selective routers, and we do utilize ESN routing. So if we have 2 PSAPs that have the same ESN, our system wouldn't be able to differentiate, who should this go to. So to address all of that, we've created this form that Blake is showing. Thank you so much, Blake. This first tab kind of just walks you through what to expect with these different tabs. It, again, includes our NG Data Services email if you need anything. Tab 2, that ESN change management, this is going to be where you go if you ever need to add, change, or delete an ESN. And that document that Blake had pulled up had all the steps to utilize this, but we don't need to worry about this right now. Tab 3, the ELT change management, is really what we're here to talk about today. So this tab is going to show you all of your ESNs as well as the ELT, or English language translation. So that's basically going to be what information is spilled at the time of call along with the ESN. And so there's a lot of data on this form. First of all, there's the ESNs you can see, and some of these ESNs may be new to you, and that's going to be because they were reassigned because they were duplicates. We took into account the number of MSAG associated to ESNs, and just, there were tons and tons of duplicates. We tried to, as best as possible, be very fair about reassigning ESNs, but if you have any questions or concerns about the reassignment, let us know. The other important thing to do here, okay, so sorry, I see a question on the side from Thomas. You don't need to worry about changing your ESNs presently in your database. This is an effort that Comtech is doing with your data once you come to our system, but you don't need to go back and do any changes. What we're going to do is we are going to do an initial seed of our database with all of your MSAG data, and we have a translation to be able to assign all these new ESNs so that on day one of the dual provisioning window where you start using our database, this data will all be loaded for you. It'll all be clean and good. And then just starting from that day forward, we'll need you to utilize the Comtech database with these new ESNs. But there's no back work that you need to do to clean up. Are there any questions on that so far? All right.
Madison, Blake, I actually have a question, and maybe I think I'm probably asking it on behalf of the PSAPs. Is there anything that they would have to do with their mapping or CAD vendors with those new ESNs?
That's a great question, and I don't know. I will take that away and I'll follow up, but I don't know as much about the mapping CAD side. But I will, I'll ask that today, and I will send you an email to help disseminate that information. Are there any other questions? All right. So like I said, we have reassigned some ESNs. That replacement ESNs tab, Blake, is going to be where we show this was your old ESN that was a duplicate, and this is the new ESN we've reassigned. So this will give you a little bit of that mapping in case you're wondering why you're seeing new stuff on this other tab, on that ELT change management tab. And then Blake, if you could click one last time to that ELT change management tab. The only other thing that I want to address here is this ELT information. It is limited by a certain number of characters based on the ALI format utilized in Iowa. So there are 3 different fields. There's law, fire, and EMS, and each of these are limited to 23 characters. We have scraped for your existing ELT information and put it into these spreadsheets. If you see a box as glowing red next to one of these fields, it'll let you know you've exceeded the character limit, and you just need to update what you want to have displayed there. We're absolutely okay with acronyms. Whatever is meaningful to you in this field, we are happy to accommodate so long as it is 23 characters or less, and that would be a total of 69 characters or less. But that's kind of the highlights. We've covered all of this in an email, but just wanted to make sure you know what to expect. Any other questions on this while I'm here and you've got me?
Hey, this is Tim Malott in Cedar County.
Okay.
So I understand the 3 areas you have for fire, law, and EMS. Mm-hmm. But with my volunteer services and having a county full of 100% volunteers, what would be the option to add a 4th? Because I have some areas that are covered by 2 different EMSs, one during the day and one during the night.
That is a great question. I will absolutely look into that, but I would suspect that would not be accounted for in the present ALI format. That is a statewide ALI format. Every PSAP in the state of Iowa has the same ALI format. So I think because that's not accounted for in that ALI format, it would be a pretty massive change to enact.
And I understand that. I understand that 100%. But at the same time, with this becoming a growing concern on the EMS side in the state of Iowa, if we don't have the dual, because it's mainly EMS, the dual ability, we're talking about if I have a new dispatcher on, a long period of time before they figure out who they got to send.
Is there
which could cost a life?
Yeah, absolutely. And I absolutely appreciate the gravity of that. Do you think that there is a way to stick within the 23 character limit, but maybe have both EMS there, or do you not, or does that not solve your problem? Like if you were able to put a slash between and say it's this slash this?
That's what we're doing now. So the 23 will do that, but we're doing that now to try to help them out. But when that comes across and you're in a crisis and you have 2 or 3 calls coming in,
Yeah.
you got to, with the priorities one and secondary is the other, or are they on days or are they on nights? And if you're in a split, sometimes it doesn't work. But yes, that is what we're doing, and that's why I'm saying, can we get that extra one in there? And I know that's something that's probably going to come to everybody's issue down the road. But
I have it down, and I will make a point. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
now, as you lose ambulance services because they can't mandate them and they become first responders, or their ambulance service can only run during certain hours because they're at work all day and they only can run the night hours, that's where the issue's coming.
Absolutely. I have written that down, and I will make sure to bring that back to our product team to review, and I will, again, send an update to Blake with a bit more information there.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for bringing that up. And the name of the ALI format used in Iowa, I saw that question. I believe it's format 10W or something. And I don't know that that is, if that's a universally, I don't know if that's a common format throughout all of 911 or if that's a ComTech format, but we use a version of format 10. And if you'd like, I can, again, Blake, I'll provide you with the breakdown of what that means, what format 10 looks like for Iowa. But it's what it's standard throughout the state, and I believe it's been used with everything we have for the wireless and VoIP calls. So I don't think it should be a huge change, but I will send that information along.
Yeah, if you could get that to me, that'd be great. I'll send it out to everyone.
Yeah, my pleasure. And any other questions on the line or in the chat? Okay, well, if anything does come up, like I've said 7 times now, feel free to shoot us an email at ngdataservices@comtechtel. We've got a group of us keeping eyes on that. And just so you know, I know that Blake mentioned this previously, but we do have comprehensive training coming in the next few weeks. We are working on getting you access to our ALI database and setting up accounts. So the sooner you can send in any information forms or any questions you have on them, the sooner we can get everything going, get you in there and start getting you more comfortable with all of this so we can iron out any other questions that come up. How soon will we know if you're, oh, hold on, I see a couple questions in the chat. So I see, how soon will we know if you're changing our ESNs? We're going to be sending out that email by end of day tomorrow. So you'll know by the end of this week if ESNs are changing. And again, that'll be not in the existing legacy database you're using, but that's just going to be in the ComTech database. And then I see Thomas asked, under the system, if a PSAP is down, will it automatically reroute? And how do the PSAPs know this has happened? So that's a separate system than the MSAG system that we're talking about, but my team actually does also help do all the provisioning for that database. And so we do have quite a lot of functionality around reroutes, and we will make sure we get with all the PSAPs and talk about any functionality or changes that they want to have there. Your existing PRF alternate routes are going to be perpetuated. So if your overflow calls always go to PSAP B, that will continue into this new database. And I don't know that I can speak to how you will know this has happened, but I will follow up with information on that as well.
I can though, Madison.
Oh, great.
No problem. So that'll just be done the same way that wireless is today. I mean, the ComTech NOC is still monitoring it, and part of our contract with them is to make those notifications and begin troubleshooting with the PSAP or whatever the case may be, and report it to both myself as well as the PSAP.
And then I also, oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna go to the next question because I think that's more in my arena as well, unless you had something else, Madison.
No, take it away. Thank you so much, Blake.
Our secondary PSAPs who have 911 wireline trunks part of the process. If somebody could offline shoot me the information on what exactly is considered there, or the specifics. At this point, I hate to keep going back to this, but the state 911 program has very specific criteria on what a primary and secondary is. So at this point, we would most likely only be considering the primary PSAPs. Those are the 24/7 PSAPs. So I would just need more information on the specifics of that. Are there any other questions for Madison or myself? Again, I kind of want to reiterate that the ALI conversion was not necessarily conceived of, when we started this project. It fell to us. Again, when CenturyLink really told us that they were no longer going to provide that service when they stopped providing the wireline connectivity into the PSAP. So it's not anything that we had wanted to bite off necessarily, but it's I think an actual better solution, and there's a lot of benefits to going this route anyway. So that's why it's a little bit bigger of a project than we thought when we started it, and that's the reason for the delays. So that it seems like a bigger hill to climb, and but I appreciate everyone's participation and willingness and effort on this. Again, I think it's really going to move 911 forward in the state. Really, a lot of the alternate routing and the seamless reroutes and a lot of the benefits that come with Next Gen 911 will really be realized on wireline, just like it has been on wireless. So I appreciate everyone's time and effort and questions into our office. Keep them coming. We've received a lot as we've gone throughout this process the last couple weeks or so. So happy to continue answering those. And I know there's probably a lot of individual type questions or county specific, PSAP specific questions that we're happy to address as well. So again, feel free to shoot them our way and we'll get to them just as soon as we can. Kind of filibustering here to make sure there's no other questions, and nothing has popped into the chat room. So if Madison or Bill from Comtech don't have anything, I don't have anything else. Thank you for joining today. Again, this webinar was recorded and will be sent out if you want to rewatch it, or if you had colleagues that weren't able to attend. So again, thank you everyone, and have a good rest of the day.